The opinion prevails that the USA and Russia are separated by several thousand kilometers. In reality, we are much closer to each other than it may seem. In the middle of the Bering Strait lie the Diomede Islands. The island of Ratmanov belongs to Russia, while its counterpart, Krusenstern Island, belongs to the Americans. The distance between them is just about 4 kilometers. Today, you will learn why it takes a whole day to overcome this distance. What is an ice curtain, and how do the locals live in the conditions of a changing climate? The Eskimos began settling the Diomede Islands over 3,000 years ago. The honor of discovering these places for the inhabitants of the Old World belongs to the renowned Russian explorer, Semyon Dezhnev. In 1648, he discovered the strait between Asia and America, later named after Bering. Furthermore, Dezhnev reported on the 2 islands located there. One of them was found by Bering's expedition in 1728. Both were mapped shortly afterward, in 1732. They received their modern Russian names in the early 19th century, thanks to the lieutenant of the Russian Imperial Navy, Otto Kotzebue. In 1867, Alexander II sold Alaska to the Americans, as it was believed at that time that these lands were of little use, and too much money was spent on their maintenance, and besides, Russia's excess gold wouldn't hurt. The deal with the USA yielded a mere pittance of $7.2 million. For comparison, a single 3-story building in downtown New York, built in 1872, known as the courthouse, cost the New York State Treasury almost twice as much as the entire Alaska to the U.S. government. At the same time, the area of Alaska is slightly smaller than the territory of Libya, which ranks 16th among the largest countries by area. After the sale of Alaska, a state border began to pass between the Diomede Islands. But initially, these changes didn't greatly concern the locals. The inhabitants of the Bering Strait area always considered themselves one people. Until 1948, families living on different islands visited each other without much trouble. After World War II, relations between the USSR and the USA deteriorated, and the border was closed. As often happens in such cases, ordinary people suffered greatly because of politics. Military personnel settled on Ratmanov Island, and the civilian population had to move to Siberia. Naturally, their consent was of no interest to those in power. As a result, the border was dubbed the Ice Curtain, in analogy to the Iron Curtain, a term popularized by Churchill, marking the beginning of the Cold War. But years passed, and the so-called Ice Curtain began to gradually thaw. On August 7, 1987, American swimmer Lynn Cox, who had previously swum the English Channel, the Strait of Magellan, and circumnavigated Cape Horn, crossed the distance from an American island to an island belonging to the USSR. The water temperature at the time of her swim was only 6 degrees Celsius. Brave residents of Alaska accompanied her on kayaks. She completed this journey in 2 hours. She was congratulated by the presidents of both countries, Mikhail Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan. Lynn Cox is often referred to as a symbol of the end of the Cold War. In 1989, the countries signed an agreement on mutual visits for the residents of the Bering Strait area. The Ice Curtain finally collapsed only in 2015 when the USA completed all formalities. According to this agreement, the indigenous peoples of Alaska could visit relatives in the Chukotka Territory and vice versa. To embark on a trip, one needed to receive an invitation from relatives in the designated area. Staying as a guest was allowed for no more than 90 days. As for the situation in 2024, it's hard to say because there are no mentions of it in the media. As mentioned earlier, the Diomede Islands are separated by a truly comical distance, about 3,750 meters. But if you want to feel like a time traveler, overcoming them is an excellent way to do so. The islands are divided by the international dateline and are in different time zones. The time difference is 21 hours, with Russia ahead of America. Therefore, Ratmanov Island is sometimes called Tomorrow Island, and Krusenstern Island Yesterday Island. This curious fact became widely known to international audiences in March 2021 when a TikTok blogger under the username Andrew_Lob posted a video explaining how to quickly walk from Russia to the USA. However, he exaggerated a bit because due to climate change, a solid ice bridge between the islands is no longer formed as before. He also mentioned the time difference. The publication went viral, garnering millions of views, after which many media outlets wrote about it. It was a real discovery for Americans. The island's unusual feature provides room for imagination. For example, one can celebrate their birthday twice a year or first celebrate New Year's on Ratmanov Island and then go back in time to celebrate it again on Krusenstern Island. It's just a pity that moving between them is not so easy. Currently, there is no permanent population on Ratmanov Island, only military personnel. The first border guards arrived here in 1941. A 6-room wooden house, warehouse, and bathhouse were brought here by ship from Vladivostok along with provisions, clothing, and weapons. Life in these parts is harsh. Winter lasts for 9 months, enduring not only very low temperatures but also strong winds. Additionally, the island is shrouded in dense fog for 300 days a year, making helicopters rare visitors. They only arrive once every 2 to 4 months to deliver food and mail. Only contractors serve in the detachment, and they have the basic amenities of civilization like television, telephone, and so on. On Krusenstern Island, or as Americans call it, Little Diomede Island, there are no military personnel. There is only one settlement here, also called Diomede. When you see this settlement from above, it feels like one of the most secluded places on the planet. It is inhabited by a modest-sized Eskimo community of just over 100 people. Today, there are about 30 buildings on the island, including residential houses, mostly built in the 1970s and 1980s. Despite its modest appearance, the settlement has a laundry room and a medical office located on the upper floor of the same building. There is also a school, from which you can see the Russian island. There is a library, a helicopter pad, and a satellite dish for television, telephone, fax, and internet access. The supplies of the island store are limited to a small amount of food, drinks, clothing, firearms, ammunition, and fuel. Anything that cannot be purchased at the local store must be ordered by mail from Anchorage, which does not arrive very often in winter. Like in many other settlements of Alaska's indigenous peoples, the import and sale of alcohol are prohibited. Electricity is provided by diesel generators, and water for winter use is taken from a mountain spring, then treated and stored in a huge reservoir. Due to the perennial permafrost, laying underground pipelines is difficult, so residents must manually transport water. Work on the island is mainly limited to settlement services such as the post office, school, and medical office. Despite the high prices of goods, Eskimos, who are already accustomed to store-bought food, are not heavily reliant on hunting and gathering. However, some gather seabird eggs, which are widespread in the northern hemisphere. They hunt walruses and make souvenirs, which are popular on mainland Alaska. The average annual family income on the island is about $25,000, which is not much due to high prices and the islanders' dependence on transported food. For example, a package of regular laundry detergent costs $45. In general, life on the island is not only challenging but also expensive. In recent times, climate change has added to the Eskimos' problems. With each passing year, it gets warmer, affecting traditional ways of life. Islanders, especially the youth, have started to consider relocation. But despite this, travelers note that the locals seem happier than many residents of big cities. That's all, friends. Share this video if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and also share your opinion in the comments. See you soon.